我们的讲员来到我们当中后，我们今天非常开心，我们请到，因为那个我之前说实话我不知道你这么有名这样子，
没有，
因为我们的老师们就说你怎么请得到他这样子，然后我女儿也说为什么你请得到他这样子，因为她有听空中英语教室这样子。然后发现说，我们请到一个非常厉害的老师哦，这个范老师，那他同时也是他是我们师大的教授，然后也是那个师大 EMI 资源中心的副执行长，然后所以在 EMI 教学上面还有很多的一个心得哦。那个范老师，那我就不多介绍了，让你自己来介绍。那他那个今天在座的大部分都是我们的学校的那个从事 EMI 教学的老师，这样子，那就麻烦你。
谢谢。
来拍手。
谢谢组长。所以今天我们都是 EMI 的老师居多吗？谢谢，太开心了。刚刚很开心的也去拜访高梦瑶老师，他先前也是在我们中心的一个活动上面担任语坛人，所以我给他请问说，高老师您这个学期开多少 EMI 课？他说他开4门课都是 EMI 课，哇，真的是非常的精进，所以觉得非常的开心跟感动。今天也是怎么说呢？可以说是来这边就是跟更多的 EMI 的这个伙伴一起来互动，觉得非常的开心。那我们想要就是讨论的内容是叫做有效的 EMI 教学。那因为大家都是 EMI 老师，如果我用英文报告，会不会就是对各位献上更高的敬意呢？因为大家上课都要用英文嘛，对不对？可以吗
？You can use English.
I can use English.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's talk in English.
Let's talk in English, right? I'm a TV teacher of Let's Talk in English, so a lot of junior high schoolers see me every day. So yes, that's part of my role, and I'm very happy to contribute to that. Today we're talking about effective bilingual curriculum design. When we're talking about bilingual education or EMI, well, oftentimes we got lots of struggles, right? Because we can see that our students are there but not there, right? It's like that. And that confuses us, saying that, are you not understand what I'm saying? That might be one thing. Well, the other thing are like, am I using the right word? That sometimes can be, right? So you're kind of having lots of questions or things that you want to, manage in the classroom. But let us say, language is one thing that used in the classroom, but it has to do with a lot of things that beyond the language. All right? It is because the understanding itself is not only created by the language, right? And a lot of acquisition, or saying that when you're picking up a lot of things that you want to learn, like some skills, we use in educational setting, we use the word pick up. We don't use the word learn because they are different. If you are learning a skill, you're practicing it so that you pick up the skill. Simply by understanding that skill doesn't contribute to your learning. So there are lots of things that we want to look at in the lesson planning. So in the end, when we're doing bilingual education, we're actually doing a very successful class that students can understand the most. That is the focus that we're having today. I'm very happy for the introduction so that you know me. I have a background for curriculum instruction. That is the reason why when I look at learning and teaching, we look at the design. It is because that learning is all about a manipulation. It's about how you plan and what kind of activity that you can engage your learners so that they can pick up the most. So sometimes they need to experience. I didn't notice that we have a setting like this today, but I also prepared something that you can work on later. Okay, so firstly, I want you to play a game that is a 1, 2, 3 game. Follow up with that, we will talk about EMI success factors. EMI success factors has to do with a lot of things. It's not just about the English proficiency, because apparently when it comes to English, there's so many kinds of English. There's so many aspects of English. How can you say that you're an English teacher, master all the language in English, right? You don't know anything about math, you don't know anything about art. You're not saying, how come you don't know that you're an English teacher? That is not true, right? So we're looking at what are the success factors are. And we're having some activities that may have you to come up with some understanding and also some hands-on activities to look at how we can align the learning objectives to the curricula. And then we will break down the learning objectives, task descriptions, grading criteria, rubrics, and marking schemes. They are actually the same thing. We will look at that later. And then we will be looking at feedback on the assessment and how feedback plays an important role to shape your students' understanding of the expectation of learning. Okay, lots of the teachers, they're not actually seeing the power of feedback. That may be something that we can also look at today. To start with, the 1, 2, 3 game. The game is really simple. All you have to do is to find a partner. So you and one partner, together you will be pairing up. Today we're going to play this game with our new friends. The game is really simple. All you have to do is to repeating by taking turns saying 1, 2, 3. Okay? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If that's too easy for you, speed up a little bit. Yes, yes, yes. Sure, how do you feel now? This is you feel great? This is you feel okay? This is you feel like some coffee. Show me, how do you feel now? It's great, right? You're having some fun with your new friends, right? Good. Alright, let's talk about this let's do it again activity, okay? When it comes to EMI, not only the instructor, the expert of the field will have some obstacles ahead, right? It is because that you know something in your research, you may be able to explain that, but when it comes to teaching, it can be something very different. Because you're breaking down the idea, not just use your own words, but also think about what your students may be able to understand. Try to break that down into the language that they will understand. Does that make sense to you, right? So in other words, you're actually changing your position to look at where your students are at. So that is very different. I know that you are all the expert in the field, but there are challenges in the classroom. It's not because that your English is not good enough. It's not simply because your English is not good enough, okay? It is because you need to understand how people learn. And then you need to understand how people learn this. You need to understand how my students learn this. Like people can be a, really general concept, right? But there are different people, right? So how my student learn this, and then how my student learn that, understand? So you're actually changing how you look at things, apart from you as a role being an expert. That is one thing, right? So with that, the challenge is there. And also for your students, they're so new to the contents that you're about to deliver, of course. They're newbies, right? Basically, if they are undergraduate students, they are quite newbies. Even for graduate students, some of them are, 斜杠青年, right? So they got a very different major before, and then they want to pursue something really new to them, right? So you're actually trying to break down the complex concepts into something that they will understand. So that is the challenge, that's the first thing. And within the process, it is very likely you and both your students are experiencing lots of, obstacles, challenges, or even frustrations. I want you to remember this game, that every time when we're doing it, it's okay when you feel like you kind of like stuck into something. What you need to do is to do it again. It is because you're not going to nail it for once, right? You're going to adjust it, and that is actually the art of teaching. And that is the effort that you've made will demonstrate what kind of, brilliant teacher you are, and your students will definitely respect on that. Okay? That is the first thing. Now let's think about this 1, 2, 3 thing. This 1, 2, 3 thing seems to be so easy. And why is that? What have you done to make this 1, 2, 3 happen? Can I have some teachers explaining what you did to make this happen? Did you have a good collaboration here? Do you think that she's a great partner? Do you think that she's a great partner? Absolutely. Then what have you two done? Listen actively. Oh, you listen actively. How? Focus. Thank you. So they're not using their phone. No, they're not. Although they're taking notes, they have devices, but at that time, they are wholeheartedly to focus on each other, right? And you got the full attention. How do you feel about that? When you got somebody's full attention? Good, right? Right. Unless that one is not having a correct etiquette, right? As long as we are having a respectful way of approach, I assume the attention will be something nice. Very good. So the first key is to listen attentively, right? To be an active listener in order to focus on the message, conveyed, right? What else do you do here?
Me and my partner,
Yes.
I think we just we making sure that this the game, what is the game,
Yes.
the purpose.
Yes.
We're making sure that we are on the same page and that we start to 1, 2, 3.
So firstly, you make sure that you understand the rules.
Yeah.
I saw that the gentleman over there saying 1, 2, 3, and using his fingers to make sure that you each get a turn,
Yes.
right? And then once you realize you have the consensus, you have the agreement upon that, you start to work together. Right?
Yeah.
That's a very good start, because a lot of the time when I'm saying group work to my students, we college teachers oftentimes assign group work for students, right? Trust me, when you are doing EMI, give them tons of group work, okay? Although, individual work is something that you also want them to do, but make sure that they do have group work. It is because that they learn the best, the most, and they got lots of visualized thinking process within the group work. But when it comes to group works, they're freeloaders and they're suckers. Right? And then that make, sometimes the group work not the most enjoyable ones. Yeah, then how do you do that, right? How do you make sure that everyone's there and contributing in a way? Some people would say, I come to this class, I can actually see that from their faces. I came to this class just for a pass. Where other students came to the class saying, I'm going to get an A+, things like that. When they are being assigned in a group, wow, they didn't have a time to talk about what they are about to do. And they jump into taking parts. All right, you take this and you take that. I even got my students, I asked my students to present a chapter. And as we can see, there are so many pages in a chapter, right? And student 1 read the first sentence from page 1 until the last sentence and say, thank you. And then come up with student 2, starting from page 2, the first sentence into the last sentence. And I say, what are you doing? You're not presenting idea. They said, did I not? And I said, no, you need to at least bring out the idea with complete ideas, right? You cannot just cut it here. They say, this is the only way we find it fair. I was like, oh yeah, I think I understand, right? So when they don't have any kind of consensus, they don't have that kind of agreement, it is not likely they are building up trust. Okay? When they are not building up trust, When you ask them to work together, they are working but not together. Understand? Right? So that is also something that we can also learn from our experiences, reflecting our experiences, saying that, do we need to have something to be agreed upon up front, right? Saying that in your classroom. Do you use 100% English? Yes, with this video, tape it session, you will not to me, right? But have you ever got something, the message that you want to send out to your students saying, you know what? We are taking the most out of this EMI course, right? So that you can have incidental learning from what? From your content, you get a credit, right? But also you get how that is being presented in a language that you're still learning. So it's like one stone kills two birds, right? But things sometimes does not go as happily forever after, right? It comes with lots of turbulences, right? But we are here to make sure that you take the most out of it. So whenever you need help, you need to, outreach to me so that I know how I can help you with, right? In that case, I will take advantage of the language that you already know and then to help you. It doesn't really matter if you do it or not. But if you're saying something like this up front within a class, so that students know that yes, they're here to take some challenges, but they're not here to fall. Because whatever happens, you will be there to catch them. That is how you show your commitment, right? That is how you, be explicit to the policy that you're having in this class. We're not against the rules of 100% EMI, but I'm just saying, in any case, whenever you need help, I will take the advantage of your language and make sure that you get there, you get the concept, and you understand. You know what? Ever since that I talked to my student after that, when they have any questions, they come to me. I was like, oh, there are students coming to me, right? They're asking questions, and I was like, here. And then I want to go to a place that is not videotaped, and there's they always say that question to me in English. And I respect that. So thank you. And I thank them for asking me questions using English. I said, I didn't realize that you'll use English to ask me things that you don't understand. And I respect that, right? I will say I respect that. And then let me try to break that down in the easiest way that you can understand, all right? So that is also something that you want to do it up front, right? Besides listen actively, right? That is one thing that you can do. With more successful experiences, I would like to interview more pairs here. Did you have a good communication with the 1, 2, 3 game?
I think she did a very good job, but I'm not that good.
What do you mean? Can you tell me more?
Because she always came fully reply to my answers.
Right.
But I think my problem is I cannot pay attention, like 100% attention. So, but the student did a very good job. She is young and energetic. Probably that's the reason I'm getting excuse here. So yeah, I think we have a good interaction. That's a good teamwork.
Thank you. So yes, students can be really agile and flexible in some way, right? So I know when you teach for some time, you will say, students are like, you're gonna kind of like stereotypes because you're being, your heart broken 1,000 times, being teared apart, and then you take it back, things like that. So sometimes you're like, you asked me to do this and that and this and that. Come on, look at them, right? I got students in my class, 11 o'clock with his breakfast, and with his phone looking at the stock market. I was like, oh, okay, what should I do, right? But I convinced myself saying that there are priorities in people's life, and I understand how this may bring to him, right? So if that's something that you pursue, I'm happy for you. I've noticed that you do have very good command between you two. The coordination is because that she got very good gesture. Starting from the first activity, she's like doing this and that. Did you notice that?
I thought I did that.
You did that.
I did that.
Okay. Does that help you? Like with this, help you concentrate?
Yeah, this helps. But
Right.
I kind of feel I cheat.
No, you're not cheating. Actually, you're doing a very good job. It is because we are all very different in the styles of communication, right? Some can be really exaggerated, right? With all kind of passion, with all kind of things in their talking, while the others are like, today I'm trying to be really scholarly to tell you, right? The theory of the quantum theory, okay, things like that. All right. So it is really hard to tell that how people feel or think about this. Have you ever heard that actually EMI teachers should also be a language teacher? You should be really aware that how language is being used in your classroom. Now, the linguistic expert told us this may be one of the most important factors that you bring back today. What they told us is that when we are communicating, we're using two signal systems. One is what? Is the sound, right? The other are texts. They are symbols, right? So if you want to be literate, you want to be literate, you at least need to be, you prove yourself can read, right? And at least you can address yourself properly, right? Through the verbal expression. Is that correct, right? So if the case, based on that theory, then we say the students could not learn, it is because their literacy is not yet there. Does that make a positive statement? I believe yes, right? But what the linguistic expert told us is something that we forgot to read for the next line. It is that out of the communication, only 30% of meaning construction is being contributed by the exchange of verbal and simple communication. And as for the 70% are actually out of nonverbal expressions. What does that mean? That means if I'm saying this soup is nice, without any emotion, then you probably would not know that if I like the soup or not.
Yeah.
If I'm saying, this soup is nice, and then I probably mean it, right? If I got this soup and said, this soup is nice, then you understand that I don't like the soup. I'm just trying to be nice. I'm not being nice actually. I'm not being nice at all. Did you see that? Even with the same symbol, right? With the same sound, it can, with a different intonation, with a different intention, it can actually create a very different meaning, right? Now, when we are learning something new, we're like a researcher, or we're like doing an experiment. We are looking for one piece of information and look for another to validate that first information, to say if that is true, okay? Saying kids are playing video games and their moms are home. They put the console back and say, hi mom, and then the mom is very happy, saying, hi kids, love you, and then the kids looking at mommy, making sure that she's really meaning that, right? And then take out the console again. Otherwise, he will just, make everything shut down to make sure that his mom doesn't find any information that he's not doing his homework, things like that, right? So when we are learning something, we also do the same thing as kids. Okay, so we are making sure that we understand that is to find another piece of information that confirms the information. Understand? So that this and that is something that you really mean that it's your turn, apart from your, your eyes or your verbal exchanges. That's also something very useful. Consists of 70% of the effective communication. So that is definitely something that you would do. So when I am developing my pre-service bilingual teachers, who's going to be a teacher of high school, right? I always tell them, when you are presenting yourself, make sure that you have plenty or sufficient of expression that not only comes from your language, but also comes from your body language, okay? When you're inviting them, you do this. When you want them to come up from, you want them to say louder. These can be designed in your class. So whenever you're doing this, and you without saying, they get conditioned, right? And they will do that up. Do you know what I'm saying? So when you are trying to boost some of the, when we are doing EMI class, and we're asking students to discuss, there's lots of time they're not discussing. They're waiting you to pass by so that they can speak in Chinese, right? Because they think speaking English is like 隔靴搔痒, because they don't know what they're talking about, right? So if you can have, what I try is, I always have some gesture, and I'm saying, I always do something to help them to try out. I'll say, if I do this, I think that you're doing a great job, keep on working. And then if I am doing this, it means that you need to start, and then have somebody to, get in the hoop, right? So that you can start, things like that. So don't underestimate the power of your gesture, okay? Your body language and your eyes, right? Your ears. Those are the things that make your communication successful. Well, and in another way, I also want to say, when I am doing EMI, a lot of students, they are there having a very numb face, so I really don't know what to tell. I don't know how they feel about it. I think basically they are very nervous, and they try to disguise themselves so that they're sitting there without any facial expressions. So what I will do is also to do a very clear explanation about how we should reduce the anxiety. Well, this is not just about, we are talking about social emotional learning these days. We're talking about mindfulness these days. We're talking about all kinds of things that we can get to the present. But I have also something to say here. It is because in the past, in my previous experiences, in all my EMI classes, I firstly ask them to introduce themselves. If this is a really big class, I will ask them to first introduce themselves in a group, and then I can walk through, okay? The purpose is not just for me to hear that how good their English are, but also to observe how they are in the class so that they can, they are ready to get down to work with others, all right? So with the first class, if I got smaller classes, I ask everybody to speak up so I can have a quick need analysis on the evaluation of students' English proficiency. That is one thing. But if not, if you have a very big class, it doesn't mean that you have to skip this part. You can always ask them to do that, and then you can observe a little bit there to see that out of what percentage that you are having with this group that's, feeling okay or feeling natural in the English environment, and out of what kind of percentage of students are not yet ready, things like that. And I always say, every time when I ask them to do their self-present introduction, 9 out of 10, after they finish their introduction, they will say, sorry, my English is really poor. thank you, things like that. I was like, come on, you finished the whole talk in English, right? But you're still not forgetting to put that sentence on. I was like, why? And with the first and second attempt, I was like, no, you don't have to be shy. You're doing great. And later on with my reflection, I realized when you are imposing that kind of confidence to them, they get even more nervous. They're saying that you're just trying to lure me to use the language because you want me to. But I'm still want to be here a little bit. I understand that with my, years of reflection. And then up front to every class, I would say, in this class, I want you to promise me for 2 things. The first thing is to be really kind to yourself, okay? English is a thing that you've been learning in entire of your life. At what age you start learning English? 6. Come on. It's his entire life already, right? Right.
From TV.
From TV, of course, from anywhere you pick up the language, right? That is good. So there's no reason that you be, shy or inconfident about it. But still, there are lots of things that are proving that you're not that good, right? I want you to put that away. If those are the things which, makes you feel like I'm not capable enough, maybe let's try to put that down, to put that away, and then see what you are capable of. Okay? And then I'm so aware, and every time when I see somebody saying something out loud, I always use my eyes. And then I move on. So I see lots of the teachers when they are teaching, they're like walking here and there just to see if students are not doing their job or not. Their intention is to see what they are not, who's not doing their job. Okay, so it's like saying, okay, put that away, put your device away, okay, get to talk, things like that. But that is also something that you should do, of course, but make sure that when you ever catch the moment that the students are trying their best to get to the point, to get to something, you make sure that you give them the feedback. Now the feedback that I will be talking about later is not just simply about that good job, great work, good things like that. No, sometimes when you are giving a right look, that kind of feedback will continue, will affect the students, will affect the learner. Well, in education we say it will empower them. Okay? Let's make sure that we all work on our body language so the body language could be impactful. It's not just a shallow look. Okay, yeah, good. Oh, good. And then, okay, let's take a look at next point because you all understand. No, you're giving that look at the right time with the right eye. You may want to practice 1 or 2. But trust me, that really matters. Okay, because when you say you really care about how they feel, if you don't have that kind of look, they will never feel it. Okay? Only when you tell them up front in the first class, and then you continue to bring that up, not only with the language, but also with everything that you do in the class, then you will convince them that they are here to both learn the content and the language. Okay? Alright? Because I got so many teachers who say, no, they're here to learn the content. English is not important. It doesn't really matter if you're speaking good English or bad English. It's okay, I understand. Yeah, I understand. But in the end, they didn't really mean it. And students can feel that. Students are the most sensitive groups, But they're giving you good comments with this second. With the next second, they can give you very bad comments. That is not because of you. That is because they are too sensitive. Do you realize that? When you got students, final evaluation with those, right? Sometimes you see that they're like so exaggerated. That's because they're very, very sensitive and they care a lot, I have to say. Kids, they are very sensitive, especially with million of powers, right? Million of powers in this room. They want to have something positive from you, really, very badly. And you cannot just give them once at the end of the semester. You're giving that along the way, okay? All right? And there's lots of teachers say, I'm giving incentives, say, adding up points or, buying them some snacks or things like that. No. Work on your look. Work on how you look at them. That worth the most, okay? That is something that you want to do. So I tell them that you need to ease down your anxiety because in the past, your teacher might tell you that you're not good enough, right? Your English is not good enough. So you need to work on this and that, right? Now, if you are too afraid to try, you will never get there. So let's just put that down. That is one thing. The second thing is, let's try to be very kind to you, of course, but also to your friends, okay? Also to your friends. It is because lots of the times they are not able to speak up. It's not because of you. It's because they're friends. Because they are young adults, right? They're not teenagers anymore, but they care a lot, right, about their peers. You cannot deny that. They don't want to lose face in front of their peers. So that is the reason why they don't want to speak up, okay? You understand this for the whole time, right? But you've never tried something to reduce that because that is the nature of these undergraduate students, right? They're 18 and above and they're like that. So what I try is that I want you to be very kind to your friends, and to start that, you can listen actively. What do you do? And then I ask them to try a little bit. Now try to use a very active way, or like the activity that we just done. Say, hey, you know what? What you just did is that you present a really kind yourself, a really kind one. And then, do you think that your friend did a good job? Just as what I asked you. Do you think that your friend did a good job? And they say, yes, things like that. For the first time, I will ask that. And for the second and the third time, when we have peer interaction, I always add on with that. Did you have a great new friend this time? Is your friend doing well? And they say, yes. Is he a good friend? Is he a good friend? Say yes. And then give a thumb up. That's the second time. And the third time, I ask them to high five. And for the fourth time, or the fifth time, you can be sure that the students are here meeting their friends happily. I teach a lot of class, like 同时, right? Liberal arts class. They are from all over the department. They don't want to be friends with others. They don't want to, actually. They don't want to. Yeah, even though that there are some people who are friends already, they tend to gossip or talk at all times on their own. They are not here to make new friends. And it actually took me some time to figure out that it is not because that they don't want to make friends. It's because they don't know how to make friends. So in my class, and every time when I say, whoa, I see today you're doing great to your friend. You're very kind. And I always use a little notebook. When I walk around, if I notice something or some language that the students are using to give good comments to their friends, I will say it out loud here. I will say, whoa, I have to say something before we move on. I noticed that we have students who's trying to be really kind to others, saying that, say, isn't that nice? I'm so proud of you. Thank you for being this kind in this class. It is because we are all learning from each other and you're doing a great job. Things like that. And then I move on. Also, I practice on my smile. When I get into the classroom, I make sure myself always smiles. It is because if I'm paying attention to something, I tend to have a very long face. I know myself. So all the smiles that you see is being practiced. It's being practiced. It's not just because that I'm very happy now. You can see me 24/7 like this when I'm standing up on the stage. So that is the thing. So, another way, when you're saying active learning, down below there's an iceberg, is the anxiety reducing. Understand what I'm saying? Only if that you are reducing enough with the anxiety that you get them to learn actively. Understand? And there's lots of the time, okay, there's one thing I would like to add on is there's lots of the time teachers think that as long as I'm giving students incentives, setting some competition so that they will try to, be the best part of them so that they can get the most, highest, best score so that they can learn. But you have to understand, this doesn't apply to everyone. To a lot of the students who are not that competitive in nature, they tend to just shut down. They tend to say, no, I quit. I don't want this. Okay? So competitive activity does not always work. And there's also all kinds of, says, let me see who's the first. Let me see who got the answer first. Let me see who's the best. Things like that from their kindergarten. They've heard things like this all the time. That doesn't always help. Okay? Sometimes, if you want to engage them in higher order thinking, you need to give them time, right? Why rush them, right? So, if you are trying to make it active, make sure that you are easing down the anxiety, not raising up the anxiety. Understand what I'm saying? When you're doing competition, you're raising up the anxiety. For those who can perform, they perform, but you are sacrificing those who can't perform under this stress. We don't want that. Okay? So that is something that you want to keep in mind. And we understand that actually EMI success factors has to do with a lot of things. Language is one thing, right? The proficiency in the language, both from the teacher and the students. I'll have to say I started doing my EMI years ago, teaching international baccalaureate philosophy and practices. It's actually a teacher education course that develop international teachers. We do have this system in Taiwan now, even in public high school. And then I move on to all kinds of classes teaching in English approach. So trust me, I got plenty of mistakes done within these years. And I have to say, your proficiency doesn't come outside of your classroom. Saying that you're a calculus teacher, you'll never be ready to step into the classroom with your English ready and to teach them. Why not? Because you don't have a class to attend saying, can I learn how to teach calculus in English here? Or you don't have a ABC tutor, right? Say, let's talk about calculus today. They don't even have that kind of knowledge, okay? Trust me, there's once I was so desperate to have another job, and then I got a free live ABC tutor session, and I say, hey, how can I improve my interview, right? Can I present my interview to you? And that guy say, hey, I'm not a comedian, I know nothing about interview. I can only do this. Today we're talking about how are you? Things like that. It's always like that. So that is something I just told. English has all kinds of aspects that you use in life. Okay, so some of them are for general purpose, while the others are for academic or specific purpose. What you can do is that you need to practice that in your classroom. So my English, I would say, yes, I work as an English teacher all my life as well. I also work as a music teacher. I was a music and an English teacher for 20 years in the high school. And then I started my career in higher education. I majored in education, so I teach lots of educational courses that help the previous teachers to get past through those tests, things like that. But I have to say that although I do have a certain degree of command in the language, but the language I used back to the days that I was a high school music teacher or a high school English teacher, and to the days now I am at, the language used is very different. Okay, the language used is very different. So that also applies to your situation. Saying that you are teaching different courses, that the language used, thank you very much, that the language used can also be very different. Okay, can be also be very different. It is only that you prepare your language and then you practice your language in the classroom so that you'll get a proficiency in that specific domain. So if you want to, make that happen, you want to try it early, because the earlier you jump, then the more practice that you'll get. So that is something. I also do lots of workshops showcasing how we can use AI to help you with some content generation and how to break that content down into manageable size, biteable sizes, and then to transfer that into teacher talk. Okay, simply by reading out the textbook doesn't make your student understand, because we all understand the written task is very different from the oral ones. So if you recorded today my section, right, and then you make that into a transcript, but reading a transcript, you won't understand nothing, right? It's very confusing. The information conveyed with the oral language, right, can be very confusing. But in this situation, I think that you understand me quite well, right? Although sometimes I jump here and there, if necessary, right? But you still can catch. That is the difference between it. And when you are, breaking down those concepts or ideas into the words that your students can understand, you're always looking for what? Feedback on their faces to see whether they understand or are they with you at the moment. If not, you try to make that slower or try to paraphrase it, say it in another way, right? Or you want to give out an example, or you want to showcase another thing, things like that. So you're adjusting in your classes. So lots of the students saying that they're not in the class, so can they, go back to the videos if it is recorded? I'll say, no, you don't have to go back to the video. All you have to do is to read the text on the textbook. If you have any question, you come to me and you ask. Because simply by going back to the video wouldn't help at all, right? It's too time consuming and it's not effective enough. It is because the nature of the verbal language and the written language is totally different. Okay? So you want to break that written language into the verbal language. Now, verbal language, when students are learning, it comes with a sequence, right? So you want to give them what? An overview, that is how we understand things, by giving them some background information, some knowledge, right? And some circumstances that you can think of that relates to their real life. That is one thing. And starting from that, you want to, use the language. After the overview, you want to give them some supporting information, some ideas, things like that. Okay, those, of course, you can plan, and you can also use that with one click. Any AI, Gen AI, just like ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT a lot, and I also use another AI who helps students and also the instructors' verbal communication for practice. That's just it. So if there's a chance that we can look at that, that would be really, really easy for you to prepare what you can say in the classroom. Okay, and then the content knowledge. Now, let's think. Talk too much. Let's think about the content knowledge. What is in the content knowledge? What is in the content knowledge? There are factual knowledge. What else? Are the knowledge always factual? What are the other knowledge that has to do with the content knowledge? Because lots of the teachers assume that there are lots of factual knowledge that they need to cram to their students. Do you agree? And they are so suffered when it comes to using the language. Like using English can be twice longer than you use that in Chinese. Right? Have you realized that when you're writing in English, it's also the same, right? Only if you use the most accurate word, that could help. But you cannot do that in your verbal language. So inevitably, the class is going to be very long. And then you're sacrificing a lot of content which wasn't covered yet to be tested. Right? Of course, you can say you need to cover those by yourself, but it doesn't seem right to you because you're a very responsible teacher. Okay? So what do you do? What are the knowledge that students are learning? They are factual knowledge, they are conceptual knowledge, there are also procedural knowledge, right? There are all kinds of knowledge that need to put together so they can understand one concept. Understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you need to also to break down that knowledge that students need to learn to understand what parts seem to be the factual knowledge and what parts seem to be the conceptual knowledge. And what parts seem to be the procedural knowledge. Understand what I'm saying? So that you can decide what kind of activity that you can apply in the classroom so that they can acquire that content that you're teaching. Okay? So that may be also something that you want to work on. So we are also promoting professional learning community. It is because that when you are preparing that, it is the best for you to have a peer, a friend, to talk a little bit about. Although that peer doesn't have to be an expert, but with that discussion, you will realize something. What is that? Because you are thinking out loud. Okay? Think out loud actually make the process. Think out loud actually make sense. Understand what I'm saying? So if you are doing EMI, it is the best that you have some friends who join together, work as the professional learning community. I believe that the center here also provides a fund for the PLC, right? So then you can get together to talk about what you plan to do or what you did in the classroom and what worked and what didn't, things like that. And that talk is very valuable for practitioners, for teachers. It is because we, as the educational major, especially for curriculum instruction, we say that teachers are reflective intellectuals. Okay? Only if that you're reflecting your approaches at every point, then you understand how effective and how not effective it is to the students, okay? All right. And I want to move on to aligning the learning objectives to the criteria. I want you to take a look at, thank you. Can we have this as a topic? Let's have this as a topic. And I want you to make a group, a small group of 3 or 4. Just find some neighbors. Let's take a look at these objectives here. Together later. It's okay, it's about your time. And then I want you to look at this. To look at this. And to tell me what are the objectives that should come first and which should come later. and why. So if you could, please take out your phone and make a screenshot for this page. But I also share the whole document with you today with Ariel, who will be sharing this whole thing to you. This is called Bloom's taxonomy. It's actually a process of how people think about things, okay? Bloom urges that when people remember, they start to understand. When they understand, they shall start to apply, or they're ready to apply. When they finish applying something, that makes them ready to analyze something. When they are able to analyze something, then they can evaluate. Now, what is the difference between these two? You can also talk about it within your group, and I'll be talking about that later. When they are able to evaluate, they shall be ready to create. Okay? So that's Bloom's theory. I want you, well, all the learners, when we talk about learning, we always look at this taxonomy. Okay? And today we're going to look at this. We were here, right? We were here?
Yeah.
Okay. Look at these learning objectives and tell me how you should arrange these objectives in an order that meet to Bloom's theory of how your cognition is being developed. Okay? Can I see smiley faces to your new friends and say hi to your new friends? Teachers, how's things? This is my 4th microphone of this day. Wonderful. What do you think? Do you think that this should be changed? Yes? You all agree? Then let's hear from you, okay? I heard lots of good recommendations here. Does the first one stay up there? So the first we all agree is our understand, right? To understand. So firstly, you introduce the topic to the students, and you need to see that the students understanding. That is one thing, right? What about the second? Thank you very much. I see lots of you deliberating. Deliberate 意思是慎思，好，就是一直在反复的想。Deliberating these words, like synthesizing, right? Like to understand phase transformations and material degradation mechanisms, things like that. So you're looking for these words all together to see which is more complex, okay? And lots of you agree that applying here may be not as complex as investigating methods to synthesize, right? What does the word synthesize mean to you? When you are doing literature review, you must synthesize because there are lots of people saying different things. But when you synthesize, you're trying to find out the commonality and you're trying to find out something that they don't agree upon and in what aspects that they're not agreeing on, right? And then you try to, go in and out with a sentence to make that together with your understanding, things like that, so you're synthesizing things, right? So synthesize is definitely a high order thinking skill. So I heard lots of you put applied principles prior to investigate methods of synthesizing, right? Good job, very nice. And apparently design novel materials, wow, that is something really huge, right? So that's definitely the last one. And as we have this order, can we have a minute going back to our class? Did you arrange your learning objectives like this? Every time when I do my syllabus, I spend whole my summer doing my syllabus. Every time after I teach a class, I decide to make changes. And in the beginning, I just want to make small changes. And in the end, I actually changed everything. in each and every class, in the syllabus, I got this kind of objectives. And as you can see, many of them are being synthesized all together, right? And then with my class, I actually break them down. So the structural property relationship is one thing. And then with the different material is another. And then with the metals, ceramics, parts or different materials can be the subtitles, the subtopics that you will be doing, things like that. Okay? So when you break down these big objectives, it is an objective for the syllabus, then you can break down that, then you can go back to your every unit, like your weekly meetings topic. And then by reversing around, if you have your topics, right, and then you are be able, supposedly, to put all these things back, right, to make these learning objectives. Let us note that the learning objectives is not just to understand. Because when I see lots of the syllabus from the college lecturers, the objectives is always to understand, to understand, to understand. Because what they think is just factual knowledge that students need to cram themselves, whereas in fact it's not. Alright, let's take a minute or two in your group talk about that. Do you have this understanding of how you should explicitly demonstrate that what students need to learn in your syllabus? Do your student care? And does explicitly show your student what the learning objectives are matter in your class? Why or why not? Teachers, thank you very much for your wonderful talk. Now the question is that do you usually talk clearly about the learning objectives in your class? I heard some of you say, yes, that's what I would do in the class. Buy it or leave it, right? Right? It's this class and you buy it or leave it. My rules, my room, right? Things like that. That makes sense. That makes sense, of course. And there are some teachers who told me, this is a mandatory course. Like it or dislike it, he's still here, right? So there's no way that you can, let them know that how important this is about or the value of it. It is because that's something that they just are being required there. But let me urge that. If that is a mandatory course, that means it's the foundation of their later on learning, isn't it? So it is very important. Now to help them to realize how important this is, maybe some of the things that you want to pay attention to, I will urge that. Because you want them to understand there are some things that serve as a core, that once you learn it, it will serve as the greatest value because it can apply to all kinds of circumstances, right? And I especially I'm an educational person. From psychology, when we are knowing what we are doing, we are the most motivated one. Think about this scenario, okay? There's a flight attendant with a card saying, chicken or fish, chicken or fish, chicken or fish, right? You're like, oh, come on, chicken or fish. I don't like either, right? I don't like either, right? But eventually you chose one. Okay, you say, okay, chicken, all right? Because you are thinking about fish, could be very fishy, it could be like bones, you hate it, right? So you say chicken, all right? So at least that you got something to choose from, you're okay. But when the flight attendant comes to you and says, sorry sir, there's no chicken left, there's only fish. That makes your life even harder. You're like, come on! And then you wouldn't eat it. It is like that. When you have options, it is very likely that you'll get better to something. You're more willing to do something. You're more motivated. But when you don't have options, you might just as well give up. A lot of persons are like that. You need to let your students understand quite well, although there seems to be no option here, but there are actually something, the value here, I want you to dig in. In my class, I always break down this to a very specific manner. In the first lesson, I will tell them, and with each and every class, in each and every lesson. And here's what I'm going to show you. That with okay, sorry, but I didn't put, did I put this one? No, I just put this one. Okay, so this is also the same. As the course, okay, as the course goes with the learning objectives, and then I will be break the learning objectives, here's the learning objectives, into different levels of descriptions that indicate or picture the student's behavior mentally and physically in learning. Okay? So this is the master level that demonstrates a comprehensive understanding or of principles behind something, things like that. That is the best, performance that one can do with the understanding. With the analysis, the best one with the mastery level should provide insightful analysis of biomedical systems and effectively applies them to the design of prosthesis, whatever it is, or devices, things like that. Okay? So that is how you demonstrate that there might be levels of performance that students can engage themselves with. Okay? And with this and that. And with the grading criteria, I always give students the learning objective and grading criteria at the same time. Because the grading criteria is the learning objective. The learning objective is actually the grading criteria. There are lots of the teachers who list out the learning objectives but are not grading. Teachers are not grading their students with that method. The writing you're asking students to do or the activity that you're asking students to do has no relevancy to the learning objectives. Okay, so that is something that students get confused. With that, I come up with a task. And if you look into the description, that's what I always do. I will tell them that by the end of the semester, you will be exploring medical imaging, biomechanics, ethics, and cellular mechanisms in medical engineering. And in this project, you need to go to these are content, right? This, and then you need to research, these are verbs, analysis verbs, experiments, that you will demonstrate, gain, but also demonstrate, right? A comprehensive understanding of these things. Do you see that? A learning objective has to do not only with the content, but also how you process the content. Do you see that? Do you see how you process the content? The way you process the content is actually using all these verbs so that you do not just understand. When you understand, what do? You need to define. You may need to describe. You may need to look at them. You may need to identify between these two or with a set of standards. Do you see what I mean? So, these, and also Bloom's taxonomy, shows us that when students are simply being asked to understand something, there are quite complex processes that they are undergoing, right? Then how can you make that happen? If you want them to identify, to understand something, then you want them to identify. How do you plan your classroom activity so that they can identify? Simply by giving them a test paper won't do. Okay, because some of them could identify, some of them couldn't. And you don't know why they couldn't. They just couldn't because they didn't show on that piece of paper, right? So that's something that we want to talked about how you can align these learning objectives to ensure that your design is there, is to break down to see how learning objectives actually play the crucial role here in your curriculum planning. Okay? I hope that this gives you a total different understanding of how you should look at them. And then you can come up with tasks to ask students to do, right? With the breakdown part, here, and there, maybe things like that. And then today we didn't have enough of time to do this, but in my previous workshops, I will be giving you a student work, and I will be asking you to use the rubric here to give out your score to the student. Now this is what I do before I grade my student, before I give them the task. I'll say, look at the grading criteria and just take the highest level of grading criteria as your learning objectives. This is how you're going to reach it. This is a description of your performance. Take that as your goal, things like that. And then I want them to understand what that means. I will ask them how you're going to do it. They will be talking that in groups. I'm not going to listen to them one by one. But as long as you have seen, you're looking at them and they're like doing something that makes sense, that you are understanding they are, visualizing and also reasoning the thing that they need to learn. If they don't, they will come and ask you, what does that mean? What does that demonstrating comprehensive understanding mean? What does provide thorough and nuanced evaluation mean? Things like that. Then you can talk about that with the contents that you deliver and then say, do you think that using this, right, could be something that you're about to prove that when you learn, things like that. So they got a picture, a big picture of what they can do possibly, right, to achieve. So I will, every time when I get to, like 3 weeks before midterm or 3 or 4 weeks before the final, I will ask them to look at this all together with me and then talk about what are the possible, outcomes that they are presenting here in their group, and then if there's any question, we discuss. Okay? So all the way, starting from your learning objectives to your learning results, actually is a strong alignment between all these things together. Okay? So that actually gives us an understanding of how you should plan the class, and you should reinforce the understanding of those learning objectives in every session. Because in every session I'll say, hi class, I'm so happy to see you. Do you still remember what we learned last time? And then we kind of review some of the points. And then to move on, today I will show them the learning objectives. Today we're going to look at this. Alright? With the learning objectives, make sure that you have the verbs and the nouns, right? You're going to look at this, you're going to understand, you're going to present, you're going to apply, you're going to think like that. And to break that down, firstly you will be reading this, and then you will discuss these questions, and then you will share your discussion, and then you will, have two options for you to evaluate which is the better. And then you need to present which one you choose and present the reason, things like that. So here's what we are doing today so that you can reach these learning objectives. Okay? So that's what we do. So every time when we're having this class, students are very clear about what they're about to do in the class. And I'll say, okay, even with the grouping, I really don't ask the students to just work with their group members that's neighbors to them. I actually arrange who's with who every time. And I ask my TA to do that. And I think the best solution that I've tried over these years is that firstly, you give them a very quick change. Like the first week, you got these 3 people together. That's for the first week. And the second week, you got another 3 people. Make sure that they have plenty of experiences working with everybody. So they're not being bonded with someone that they hate. And then you'll say, you're making friends. I know you are very different, but being professional is a thing that you can learn. So being professional is to understand there are diversity in this group. Although we look very alike, but we are very, very different, to understand that, right? And then to be very respectful, even when you have very different opinion with others. It doesn't really matter that if people have different opinion with you, right? As long as you show your respect, okay? Showing respect, you also show your understanding. You understand that people have different understanding or different perspective. That's the thing you do. So I will deliberately also make that happen. Like some questions are just questions that are the answers that you can find on the book, whereas something that they need to present their personal opinion. And with that circumstances, I will highlight that how multifaceted the opinions created a comprehensive understanding so that it is in this classroom we are all being enriched by every other's perspective. Okay, that is something that we really want to do. Sometimes I think that the class that didn't work is because that we are not making the learning happen. It is not that you are not making your delivery happen. Your delivery happened, but the learning isn't happening. The learning is among them. That what you need to do is to tune them in, not to tell me, to tune them in and make sure that we're on the same page, we're doing the thing, we have the same understanding, and start from that, we can work with each other, okay? Even with the freeloaders and suckers and group presentation, I have a set of this criteria as well. I make sure everything has this set of criteria, so we're on the same page. So that is how the learning objectives starting from designing could serve as a very powerful tool throughout your curriculum planning, and then to give students a very clear focus on what to expect out of your class. I teach mandatory classes too. I got students who came to my class 3 times in a row because the first two sessions the student was being flunked, but he kept coming back. And I asked, why are you coming back? Because you're being flunked, and I have this high standard, and I will not compromise because you are trying this for the 3rd time. But he said, because I know I wasn't there, and I know I didn't, contribute enough. But I also know that you got that standard, and I appreciate that. That is the reason I keep coming back. And it's okay, thank you very much for that. Make sure that you demonstrate that as well. And if you are truly seeking something here, I have my both arms open, things like that. So yes, of course, we have all kinds of students who are in the middle of somewhere who doesn't really know what that means to them, right? I think that you actually have the ability to show them the beauty of what you are presenting to them, not just of something that everybody eats. Even if it's a bowl of rice, you can tell them so well from the soil, from water, from mineral, from the biome, from the ecosystem here. This is something that you should really appreciate. I think that is actually the art that we're talking about today, and hopefully that you get most out of this. And I noticed that, yes, there are some minutes left. Maybe, do you have any feedbacks or comments or any questions that you want to